The Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation has yesterday officially released its audited financial statements. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from that statement right now. Yep, 3.7 trillion naira in revenue, 19% down. Impairment, now this is the key here. Impairment reversals, 713 billion naira, up from an impairment of 273 billion in 2019. Other income, 675 billion, a net profit of 287. We have with us in the studio Mustapha Wahab, who is an oil and gas analyst with Chapel Hill Denham. Mustapha, good morning to you. You're very welcome. I want to get the audited comments from the auditor. Can we put that up on our screen and let's take a look at the auditor's comments on these financials? Mustapha, I want to get your take on what the auditor put out there. All right. Highlighted in yellow, as stated in Note 42, these events or conditions, along with other matters as set forth in Note 42, indicate that a material uncertainty exists that may cast significant doubt on the group and corporation's ability to continue as a going concern. And they're referring to the fact that liabilities are in excess of assets. Mustapha, what's your read on this?
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, two of these audit companies, they are, household names, PwC, SIAO, and obviously you would want to put a comment out there to sort of remove yourself from any, material downside that might be coming from these sort of reports, right? It's clear. I mean, about 287 billion in profit. That's what they reported in 2020. And where we check the numbers with many other houses, we strip out, those non-core items that basically drove the financials into profit. When we strip it out, what we saw was that NNPC would have reported up to 1.1 trillion in losses in 2020.
Loss?
Yes.
If you take out those other
non-core items, it could have been 1.1 trillion in loss.
I almost fell off my chair.
Yeah.
Let's put up our next item here on the screen for our viewers with respect to these numbers from the NNPC. I think we're going to be putting up next the other items. Let's put that up there. Okay, no, these are the highlights. So let's go to the notes. Let's move to the next other income. Yeah, so we're here. So let's stick here. We're in the right place now. Mustapha, very quickly. What's refund from the Federation, 12.5, that's note 12.5, 110 billion. Sundry income, 157 billion. You can see the year-on-year change.
Yeah.
But what can you tell us about what we're seeing here in terms of the other income that NNPC reported? Yeah,
so two things comes to mind now when you look at this sort of numbers. First is that if a refund from the Federation, from the Federation. I mean, obviously in the last couple of years, a lot of people have wondered how, a lot of people have been putting different comments out there that NNPC is funding, operations of the government. And what you are saying clearly is that a 1.1 billion refund, just basically points to the fact that maybe, those sort of allegations were actually true. Maybe they were doing some fundings for them, right? For the second one, the variation in crude stock, is very tough to understand, right? Because what we did this morning was that we checked, some NNPC, some companies that, they were probably operating in the same line as the group. We checked, companies like Seplat, we checked, Tulu, Kind Energy, Cosmos, and what we saw was that most of these companies actually reported massive amount of, losses as far as, write-downs of their book is concerned, and that's basically because of the collapse in oil price in 2020. But when you see, oil price decelerating sharply, what basically what that means is that, you'll be seeing some significant deviation, from, oil projections, versus the current economics. Hence the reason why, a Seplat would book up to $160 million, in payment charges in 2020, right? So I don't know how this number is coming to play here.
Speaking of impairments, we have on the screen on note 11 explaining the impairment. It said the impairment reversals during the year. This is a reversal of 700 billion that we showed in the previous note. They say relates meaning to the recovery of strategic alliance receivable amounts on the Federation and reversal of full impairment on receivables which are no longer doubtful. How can you, lots of financial jargon here, how do you piece through this?
It's very difficult to understand. Again, like I said, PwC is one of the auditors of this. They probably would have seen some evidences, some receipts, of these sort of receivables that they are now putting back in into play in 2020. Like I said, Rutus, if you check the numbers for Tulu Energy, for instance, they reported about 1.2 billion, in impairment losses in 2020. Seplat did up to 160 billion. Cosmos about 150 million dollars, impairment charges. So you would assume that you will see something, of that magnitude for NNPC as well. But we're not seeing it, and obviously it's quite shocking.
Interesting stuff. Do you think, looking at, and now we're actually showing, so we took, this is just for our viewers, this is where we got these items from. Yeah. So this is note 11. This is just showing you the financials, just so that everyone knows where we got these items. This is the source. 2021. I know we only have a minute to go.
Okay.
Since these are one-off items, what can we expect in the next financial year?
So, Brutus, I would give you some sort of comfort. 2021, I mean, this year, if you checked revenues was down, significantly because of lower oil price. This year, we've seen oil price recover. Production, higher oil price will probably cover for that significant decline in production. So, possibilities are that we'll see stronger revenue performance in 2021, basically from oil price alone. But if you remove all those line items again, possibilities are that we'll see NNPC, going back to the losses, that they've reported in the previous year. Like I said earlier, take out that 600 billion and 700 billion in non-core income. And
it's a loss.
It's probably a loss of 1.1 trillion.
Mustapha Wahab, oil and gas analyst with Chapel Hill Denham. Mustapha, thank you so much for joining us.